Namaskar. Hello and welcome to this Know the Nobels Forum 2024. And the journey has moved from physiology, physics, and chemistry, the three fundamental sciences, to today's Know the Nobel Forums, where we have clubbed together the two Nobel Prizes in peace and literature. सो साइंसेस के साथ नोबेल का जो दूसरा कपलेट है विच इज़ लिटरेचर पीस and economic sciences, which will be the next Nobel Forums. So today we will be deliberating upon the personalities and the Nobel Prize winning phenomena. In fact, in peace and literature, it is the personality at large which is generally recognized by the Nobel committees out there. So this year's Nobel Peace Prize, as it is known, has gone to an institution. It has gone to a Japanese organization, Nihon Hidankyo, for its efforts to achieve a world free of nuclear weapons and for demonstrating through witness testimony that nuclear weapons must never be used again. So, this has been an advocacy group, a public outrage group. We'll be knowing more about it and how it qualified to receive this one of the highest recognitions in global peace. And the Nobel Prize in Literature for the year 2024 has been given to the South Korean author Han Kang for her intense poetic prose. Her poise is poetic that confronts historical traumas and exposes the fragility of human life. तो जो जीवन की क्षणभंगुरता है, जो ट्रॉमास हैं बिकॉज ऑफ द वॉर्स पर से, हांग कांग ने उसको अपने साहित्य में पिरोया है और उसके लिए उनको नोबेल पुरस्कार से नवाजा गया है. And as usual, we will be going to our pedagogy of conducting these Know the Nobel forums by relying upon the official Nobel website and the Nobel press releases concerning these eminent laureates as they are known as. So we'll start with peace first, the efforts of uh, uh, this Japanese group, and then we will move on to literature because literature again it encompasses the entire human expression, the human aspiration, the feelings of it, the language in the linguistic format. Till today, 105 peace prizes have been given to 142 laureates, we can say, and 19 women. The youngest laureate has been at the age of 17, Malala Yousafzai, and the oldest laureate has been at the age of 86. So, the Nobel Peace Prize 2024 is awarded to Nihon Hidankyo, which is an organization of survivors from the 1945 atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And the origami crane has become symbolic to their fight to abolish nuclear weapons. And what is so very, I would say, serendipitous, that Nobel Committee has put up a tutorial to fold the paper cranes. And in the last Know the Nobel forums, we saw the mystery in chemistry, which was the folding structure of the proteins, the 20 amino acids, how their sequence will be folding in the three-dimensional space, and that prediction and that entire computational challenge for which the Nobel Prize in chemistry for 2024 were given for two young computer scientists and also one to a scientist who created who could synthesize the proteins per se. So coming to the so if we see all the prominent names in world history in the contemporary era, just 125 years odd, Nobel Prizes, especially the peace prizes, have had been annulled. They had not been given in the times of the wars. The first World War, you can see 14, 15, and 16. It was a Nobel Peace Prize holiday, and also in the Second World War, again 39 to 45 or so till 43. This is it was 1939 to 43. No Nobel Prizes were given, and very special occasion in 55 and 56. Again, it was a kind of a holiday, and the reason which was accorded was that the Nobel committees could not find a worthy recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize as per the will of Sir Alfred Nobel. And if you just go through randomly, we will see all kind of politicians, all kind of bigger figures globally who have bagged these Nobel Peace Prizes and peace brokers, we can say so. And what they say that 105 times to 142 laureates between 1901 to 2024, including this year, 101 individuals and 31 organizations. So Nobel Peace Prize is something which also goes to organizations as well. And International Committee of Red Cross has been awarded the highest number, three times Nobel Prize winner, 1744. They are just post-war times, and 1963. And the Office of United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees has been awarded Nobel Prize two times, 54 and 1981. So this is so the global, we can see that the contours of the global politics, as we can say, can be reflected in this entire Nobel Peace Prize. The 2020 Peace Prize went to the World Food Program, perhaps in the at the height of COVID, and so 2017 it was the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons. So nuclear weapons have been quite so very prominent in the Nobel discourse. So let's come to the whole press release. It was released from Oslo on 11th of October 2024. Out of all the six Nobel Prizes, five original, the Economic Sciences Prizes was added later on. The Peace Prize is given in Oslo. The others are given in Stockholm. That's there. So the Norwegian Nobel Committee decided to award the Nobel Peace Prize for 2024 to the Japanese organization Nihon Hidankyo. And this grassroots movement of atomic bomb survivors from Hiroshima and Nagasaki, also known as Hibakusha, it's a joint name of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Hibakusha, is receiving the Peace Prize for its efforts to achieve a world free of nuclear weapons and for demonstrating through witness testimony that the nuclear weapons must never be used again. So, in response to the atomic bomb attacks of August 1945, a global movement arose whose members have worked tirelessly to raise awareness about the catastrophic humanitarian consequences of using nuclear weapons. Gradually, a powerful international norm developed stigmatizing the use of nuclear weapons as morally unacceptable. And this norm has become known as the nuclear taboo. So, come what may be the confrontation, there is a kind of a global consensus, the nuclear taboo, that nuclear weapons would not be used ever again. So, the testimony of the Hibakusha, the bomb survivors of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, is unique in this larger context. So there have been we have been knowing about the testimonies post the World War One to the Allied powers, and also this nuclear attack survivors' testimony became a global uh, sensation for that matter. So, these historical witnesses have helped to generate and consolidate widespread opposition to nuclear weapons around the world by drawing on personal stories, creating educational campaigns based on their own experience, and issuing urgent warnings against the spread and use of nuclear weapons. The Hibakusha group help us to describe the indescribable, the human trauma. I think the literature laureate who has been chosen, so it's a kind of convergence of the human suffrage, the human trauma and suffering. So, uh, so describe the indescribable, to think the unthinkable, and to somehow grasp the incomprehensible pain and suffering caused by nuclear weapons. So this elaboration has been so very critical and so very important in creating, in championing the nuclear taboo in the global politics. So the Norwegian Nobel Committee wishes nevertheless to acknowledge one encouraging fact: no nuclear weapon has been used in war in nearly 80 years. So, this has been quite an encouraging aspect. Global peace, especially on the count of nuclear weapons, has been maintained. So, the extraordinary efforts of Nihon Hidankyo and other representatives of the Hibakusha have contributed greatly to the establishment of the nuclear taboo globally. It is therefore alarming that today this taboo against the use of nuclear weapons is under pressure. We all know that there are global conflicts which are there on the Russia Ukraine frontier, the Israel Palestinian, and the entire Middle East is quite engaged in, not we can say war, but conflict. There is huge unrest out there. So the nuclear powers are modernizing and upgrading their arsenals. New countries appear to be preparing to acquire nuclear weapons, and threats are being made to use nuclear weapons in ongoing warfare. At this moment in human history, it is worth reminding ourselves what nuclear weapons are: the most destructive weapons the world has ever seen. And friends, one peculiarity we will see across Nobel Prizes that they're awarded, the committees are quite vigilant about the contemporary affairs, and they award the Nobel Prizes in such a fashion to really constructively influence the ongoing global debate. Nobel Prizes put out their weight of the entire scholarly scientific community across the world, a kind of a collective voice, we can say. The prestige and the privilege of Nobels, I think that comes all of a sudden to really tilt the balance in some kind of a narrative. So, Russia Ukraine frontier, which is a kind of a proxy for the American interest in Ukraine, the Western interest for that matter. So, Nobel Prize just came all of a sudden, they popped up. They're a great contender. They have been working since 1956. But then they chose this very opportune movement to tilt the balance in favor of world peace for that matter. So next year will mark the 80 years since two American atom bombs killed an estimated of 120,000 inhabitants of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. A comparable number died of burn and radiation injuries in the months and years that followed. So it was kind of a carnage. And today's nuclear weapons have far greater destructive power. They can kill millions and would impact the climate catastrophically. A nuclear war could destroy our civilization. The fates of those who survived the infernos, just see the strong word what Nobel Peace Committee has used, survived the infernos of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, were long concealed and neglected. As they say in the global legal warfare, that accepting suffering without speaking out is a violence in itself. So, the Hibakusha group, which tried to document its testimony of the suffering, describing the undescribable, and so these adjectives, and to think the unthinkable. That's where uh, 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 Nihon Hidankyo's contribution comes into play. So they say that in 1956, local Hibakusha associations, along with victims of nuclear weapon tests in the Pacific, formed the Japanese Confederation of A and H bomb sufferers organizations. And this name was shortened in Japanese to Nihon Hidankyo, and it would become the largest and most influential Hibakusha organization in Japan, the largest and the most influential Hibakusha organization in Japan. Since we are in the month of December, we all remember the 1984 Bhopal gas tragedy. So there were victim organizations, and that was a tragedy. But it was not a war, but again, it had a huge human catastrophe over there. So, the core of Alfred Nobel's vision was the belief that committed individuals can make a difference. And in awarding this year's Nobel Peace Prize to Nihon Hidankyo, the Norwegian Nobel Committee wishes, it has rather, we are doing a post facto kind of a the Nobel's forum. So it has honored all survivors who, despite physical suffering and painful memory, have chosen to use their costly experience to cultivate hope and engagement for peace. So, Nihon Hidankyo has provided thousands of witness accounts, issued resolutions and public appeals, and sent annual delegations to the United Nations and a variety of peace conferences to remind the world of the pressing need for nuclear disarmament. One day, the Hibakusha will no longer be among us as witnesses to history, but with a strong culture of remembrance and continued commitment, new generations in Japan are carrying forward the experience and the messages of the witnesses, and they are inspiring and educating people around the world. In this way, they are helping to maintain the nuclear taboo, a precondition of a peaceful future for humanity. So, the decision to award the Nobel Peace Prize for 2024 to Nihon Hidankyo is surely anchored in Alfred Nobel's will, and this year's prize joins a distinguished list of peace prizes that the committee has previously awarded to champions of nuclear disarmament and arms control. So the Nobel Prize fulfills for the 24 Nobel's desire to recognize efforts of the greatest benefit to mankind. So for the teachers of social sciences, largely history, geography, civics, what we can say the core social science subjects, economics is dealt separately. So they can really go to the intertwined aspects of the Nobel Prizes for that matter, and how many Nobel Prizes, peace prizes have been given for works in the domain of nuclear disarmament. Because peace is something which needs to be there for all, because all prosperity is founded on peace. In India, we have the shloka Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. We talk about the peace with the elements, harmony all across. So this was all with the, and we can see that Nihon Hidankyo as a logo, as we see, it's a folded bird. It is origami crane. They say it's the crane of peace. They're maintaining the nuclear taboo, and its leader, Terumi Tanaka, who received the Nobel Peace Prize in Oslo on 10th of December. A fine gentleman out there. So we can, since the Nobel Prizes have been given, we can go and listen to these Nobel Prize, lectures by the Nobel laureates themselves, and get, I would say, acquainted all over again. Now, moving forward from peace to literature. So the Nobel, it's a quite a connected theme this year. So this year's Nobel Prize in Literature has been given to Han Kang. Uh, she's a South Korean author for her immense poetic prose that confronts historical traumas and exposes the fragility of human life. So, poetic prose, historical traumas, and fragility of human life. So, these are the three operating words. And literature, again, if we go in the checkered his uh, history 117 times to 121, as we saw in physiology, in physics, and in chemistry. It's largely a teamwork, quite a number of prizes, and the laureates are almost double. But in literature, if we see, it's largely 1:1, with some collective awards, something a trivia which the students can really go through, explore, and very complex themes of human expression, of human literature. So, literature is something very, very deep. And in today's time, when artificial intelligence is now taking over, the large language models are coming up, and they are encapsulating complex questions in a as if it has been written by a human. Literature is gaining much more prominence because going forward, it would be a challenge for the human brain to discern and decipher that is it an original work, or it has just been assimilated by the machines based on the past human experience. So, this is the biobibliography in the field of literature. The Nobel Committee is the Svenska Akademien. This is the group. So, this is the bibliography of Madame Kant's work all through, and why she has been given, there is an elaborate. So, Han Kang was born in 1970 in the South Korean city of Gwangju, before at the age of 9, moving with her family to Seoul. And she comes from a literary background, her father being a reputed novelist. And alongside her writing, she has also devoted herself to art and music, which is reflected throughout her entire literary production. So just imagine, just see, that's why Nobel Committee has put up her prose is poetical prose. So art and music has gone through. So Han Kang began her career in 1993 with the publication of a number of poems in the magazine. This is the South Korean, now we can write it through Unicode, Literature and Society. Her prose debut came 2 years later in 1995 with a short story collection, Love of Yeosu, followed soon afterwards by several other prose works, both novels and short stories. And notable among these is the novel in 2002, which is Your Cold Hands, which bears obvious traces of Han Kang's interest in art. And the book reproduces a manuscript left behind by a missing sculptor who is obsessed with making plaster casts of female bodies. There is a preoccupation with the human anatomy and play between persona and experience, where a conflict arises in the work of the sculptor between what the body reveals and what it conceals. Life is a sheet arcing over an abyss, and we live above it like masked acrobats, as a sentence towards the end of the book tellingly asserts. Han Kang's major international breakthrough came with the novel The Vegetarian in 2007. Uh, Written in three parts, the book portrays the violent consequences that ensue when its protagonist, Yong Hai, refuses to submit to the norms of food intake. Her decision not to eat meat is met with various entirely different reactions. Her behavior is forcibly rejected by both her husband and her authoritarian father, and she is exploited erotically and aesthetically by her brother in law, a video artist who becomes obsessed with her passive body. Ultimately, she is committed to a psychiatric clinic where her sister attempts to rescue her and brings her back to a normal life. However, Yong Hai sinks ever deeper into a psychosis like condition expressed through the flaming trees, a symbol for a plant kingdom that is as enticing as it is dangerous. Before I move on further, I would really like to bring in Dr. Surbhi, who is a president at Rethink India Institute and also a medico from the All India Institute of Medical Sciences. That Dr. Surbhi, फिजिकल स्वास्थ्य की तो हम बातें सभी करते हैं, और नोबेल का जो अंतर्गुम्फित द इंटरट्वाइंड यूनिवर्स ऑफ नोबेल प्राइजेस, वी सी just this plot what Hang Kang has put in her novel The Vegetarian, the kind of mental trauma which has been afflicted on a young lady by all the people around her. So, tell us more about the human trauma per se. Colonization of nation states and societies is one part, but this kind of traumas afflicted on a person, this is might be a literary figure, but from a mental health perspective, there are two questions specifically. One is the personal choices for diet. Uh, does it go extend from right to life to right to diet? What I want to eat and not eat, the negative right of it all. And secondly, as Han Kang has described beautifully, that the protagonist Hyung Hai's sister, she she breaks her out from the psychiatric clinic. So, uh, why she was admitted first, and is mental health recoverable for that matter? Please elaborate us to make it really objective out here, please.
So, namaskar, and well, I would like to say that firstly, when you talk about the diet, in this particular case, the protagonist, Yong Hai, decision not to eat meat. It is not that the protagonist has kept any, particular desires for eating something or not eating something. It is something very, very fundamental, going the vegetarian way. And this is the right which every human being has been, because of whatever values and ethos a human being wishes to tread, whether the family follows it entirety or not, but this should be given the right to follow the vegetarian path or eat a particular diet type. That is one. And secondly, about when we talk of mental health, yes, of course, these kind of behavioral atrocities have a very, very very, very damaging effect on the mind set, especially. And psychiatric help is the easiest resort to rescue the subject. But what the sister has done, when the protagonist Yong Hai sinks even deeper into a psychosis like condition, it needs a complete cognitive, behavioral, and a cooperation and empathy, largely. And it's quite a Herculean task to take out such a patient, you know, from what this situation the patient is in. But definitely, this is the breakthrough, this is the beauty, and this is the transformation. And I think that's why Han Kang's book has touched the chords of human consciousness and emotion.
One
Because
supplementary query, that had the gender been reversed, had this dietary preference being of a male, not of a female, what, in your opinion, like my simple question is, are the mental health issues more of these sorts of exploitations more towards the female gender, where they are exploited upon and forced upon, uh, than the males for that matter?
Well, very true. In fact, women, young women, and especially, in this age, also, women are definitely more vulnerable to falling to this kind of a, you can say, kind of exploitation, and they are easy targets. And since the defense mechanism or coping mechanism, as we say, is quite sparse with the women folk, because if the family itself, you can see here the authoritarian father forcibly rejected both her husband, and then the exploitation by the brother-in-law. So all this is, of course, definitely it is abuse and exploitation within the family itself. Where to go out? So in that case, the woman has very less defense to build her persona and to fight this. So she falls prey to the psychiatric ailments, and this is where I think a woman can help a woman. And if a woman can understand a woman, I think that is one really a silver line in the entire narrative. And also, well, sometimes we say that, a man is also behind a woman. So definitely, they need somebody in the family, at least, because a woman cannot stand all by her own if everyone is anti her, because the social structure is such.
So, just one more curiosity, it has gone from literature to the mental health issues. So, do you somewhere feel, and in the larger context of peace, peace at the global level where there is no war or not the nuclear taboo is in place, but peace within a household, peace within a kutumb, a community, a society for that matter. So, do you somewhere feel that the increasing mental health issues are because of either reported or unreported? Exploitations within, I would say, the trust frameworks per se. It's a complicated issue, but yes, I felt like because it's a Nobel Prize in
Absolutely.
literature. Hmm.
Absolutely, absolutely. Lot of exploitations goes unreported, and this is in medical terms we call this incest. A kind of a physical exploitation at the bodily level, and in fact, not just physical, exploitation. There are various other ways of mental exploitation as well. And
Mhm.
that is where the subtle thin line where the woman has to try and understand that how to garner support for herself
Mhm.
from her like-minded and family members.
Thank
That's
you.
a
Thank you.
it's a great
So,
challenge.
So Hong Kong represents, it's painful, but then she represents, अब शब्द चित्र खींचती है हांगकांग की psychosis like condition को she expresses through the flaming trees, a symbol for a plant kingdom that is as enticing as it is dangerous. So a person tries to find refuge in the mental space, अंदर की तरफ अंतर्मुखी होने का प्रयास करते हैं to move away from the drudgery. And that's where the Indian yogis, the Indian freedom fighters who were sent to Kalapani, like the valiant Savarkar and the likes, they had a deep internal courage so they could withstand that outer drudgery by going inwards in the meditative mood. And today, we are conducting this Know the Nobels Forum on the eve of the World Meditation Day. The summer solstice has been declared as the World Yoga Day, somehow the winter solstice, 21st of December, has also been declared as the World Meditation Day. So meditation is something which can really challenge upon, which can really be a counter to the mental health issues at large. We would be conducting more sessions on that later on. But this was a very, I would say, serendipitous coincidence that Hong Kong's work included a case of psychosis, a case of exploitation, and we also see the story of empathy that the protagonist's sister came to help her to lead a normal life. A more plot based book of Hong Kong is The Wind Blows Go from 2010, a large and complex novel about friendship and artistry. So, art remains her constant parallel track in which grief and a longing for transformation are strongly present. So Hong Kong's physical empathy for extreme life stories is reinforced by her increasingly charged metaphorical style. uh, Greek lessons in 2023 from 2011 is a captivating portrayal of an extraordinary relationship between two vulnerable individuals. A young woman who, following a string of traumatic experiences, has lost the power of speech, connects with her teacher in ancient Greek, who is himself losing his sight. So, from their respective flaws, a brittle love affair develops. The book is a beautiful meditation around loss, intimacy, and the ultimate conditions of language. In the novel Human Acts, Hong Kong this time employs as her political foundation a historical event that took place in the city of Guangzhou, where she herself grew up and where hundreds of students and unarmed civilians were murdered during a massacre carried out by the South Korean military in 1980. In seeking to give voice to the victims of history, the book confronts this episode with brutal actualization and, in doing so, approaches the genre of witness literature. So, we can see the convergence between uh, Nihon Hidankyo
Answer.
and which used the witness testimony as a tool. And here also, Hong Kong in her book Human Acts, she puts things about witness literature. Hong Kong's style as visionary as it is succinct, nevertheless deviates from our expectations of that genre. So there is a departure from genres, the established genres. Newer innovations are also coming in literature. And it is a particular expedient of hers to permit the souls of the dead to be separated from the body, thus allowing them to witness their own annihilation. तो दृष्टा भाव जो भारतीय यौगिक परंपरा में कि जीव जो है, the soul witnesses what is happening, and that's where deep meditation takes you further. So in certain moments, at the sight of the unidentifiable corpses that cannot be buried, the text harks back to the basic motif of Sophocles' Antigone. In the White Book, Hancock's poetical style once again dominates. The book is an elegy dedicated to the person who could have been the narrative self's elder sister, but who passed away only a couple of hours after birth. In a sequence of short notes, all concerning white objects, it is through this color of grief that it's a color of grief and as well as the color of peace. This color of grief that the work as a whole is associatively constructed. This renders it less a novel and more a kind of a secular prayer book, as it has also been described. If the narrator reasons the imaginary sister had been allowed to live, she herself would not have been permitted to come into being. It is also in addressing the dead that the book reaches its final words. Within that white, all those white things I will breathe in the final breath you released. Another highlight is the late work We Do Not Part from 2021, which, in the terms of its imaginary imagery of pain, is closely connected to the White Book. The story unfolds in the shadow of a massacre that took place in the late 1940s on South Korea's Jeju Island, where tens of thousands of people, among them children and the elderly, were shot on suspicion of being collaborators. The book portrays the shared mourning process undertaken by the narrator and her friend Inseon, who both, long after the event, bear with them the trauma associated with the disaster that has befallen their relatives. With imagery that is as precise as it is condensed, Hang Kang not only conveys the power of the past over the present, but also equally powerfully traces the friends' unyielding attempts to bring to light what has fallen into collective oblivion and transform their trauma into a joint art project. So, like literature, art is also an expression, the deep expression of human feelings, human aspirations for that matter, human sufferings, we can say so. So, which lends the book its title, We Do Not Part. As much as about the deepest form of friendship, as it is about the inherited pain, the book moves with great originality between the nightmarish images of the dream and the inclination of witness literature to speak the truth. So Hong Kong's work is characterized by his this double exposure double exposure of pain, a correspondence between mental and physical torment with close connections to Eastern thinking. This is quite seminal. The Nobel Committee has distinguished between the Western thinking and the Eastern thinking. Uh, Convalescence from 2013. This involves a leg ulcer that refuses to heal and a painful relationship between the main character and her dead sister. No true convalescence ever actually takes place, and the pain emerges as a fundamental existential experience that cannot be reduced to any passing torment. In a novel such as The Vegetarian, no simple explanations are provided. Here, the deviant act occurs suddenly and explosively in the form of a blank refusal, with the protagonist remaining silent. The same can be said of the short story Europa, in which the male narrator himself, masked as a woman, is drawn to an enigmatic woman who has broken away from an impossible marriage. The narrative self remains silent when asked by his beloved, if you were able to live as you desire, what would you do with your life? There is no room here for either fulfillment or atonement. In her oeuvre, Han Kang confronts historical traumas at the personal level, an invisible set of rules, and in each of her works exposes the fragility of human life. She has a unique awareness of the connections between body and the soul, and that is what the Nobel Committee refers to it as the Eastern thinking, the living and the dead, and in their poetic and experimental style has become an innovator. We talk about innovations in the technological space, but innovator in contemporary prose. So Anders also son, who's the chairperson of the Nobel Committee. So this is all her bibliography, works in Korean film. It has been created, Vegetarian 2009. Perhaps our teachers, Nobel nurturing teachers, can really inspire their students to really watch at least at the film based on this. Swedish works, English works, French, German, so and so forth. So, pain, human suffering, that is the operating word, are historical traumas and exposes the fragility of human life. Dr. Surbi, we would close today's Nobel Forum with your closing invocation. Medicos look at pain and disease at the same time. A dis-ease resulting into excruciating pain at the physical level is one part, but how to overcome the pain at the deeper emotional level, which affects perhaps the pain at heart, it affects the mental health. What are some of your tips Apart from feeling that pain, what Hong Kong has done, but as a medico, what are the prescriptions for it?
So, of course, the central tenet is that happiness lies within yourself. You know, one goes and searches in the entire world with the possessions, riches. Happiness lies within oneself. If there is pain, the pain relief has to start and stem from yourself, your healing within. And that would happen with a deep realization that you are the divine light, you have the source, you are the supreme doctor, and that willpower to heal, that willpower, that sankalp shakti will start the process. And of course, eat well, drink well, lots of water, hydration, good sleep, positive thoughts, and then a constant auto suggestion framework where we hammer good thoughts, positive thoughts to oneself, and of course engage in fruitful action also. And most importantly, I feel that pain relief needs empathy. you know
Mm.
it needs empathy, because if the pain is recognized, that there is pain, half the cure is already done. So what it needs is understanding. It needs a great deal of intellectual and emotional power to understand and empathize with somebody who is in pain. And
Thank you.
yeah.
We come to the conclusion of this Nobel Nobel's Forum for Peace and Literature, quite intertwined fields, because if there is a peace within individuals, there will be peace in the family, in the community, in the larger polity, and the global community for that matter. And Nihon Hidankyo's efforts in the post-trauma events of the Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the nuclear taboo. I think along with the nuclear taboo, there has to be a kind of a taboo pertaining to afflicting traumas to another human being close to you. I think that is somewhere a doctrine more than the rights. It's an empathy, and it's like treating everyone with there is a lot of talk of human rights from the state, but as we saw in the literary expressions of Hong Kong, that there are exploitations happening right at the levels of where affection and care and belongingness. So family as a unit of security has to be revoked, has to be resuscitated. Its boundaries and structures. I think Nobels open up a lot many questions for the global community to ponder over, to reflect upon, and to reaffirm. I would say Sir Alfred Nobel's will for the greatest benefit of humankind. We would be concluding this Know the Nobels Forum 2024 series with our next edition on Know the Nobels 2024 in the field of economic sciences. It's a very interesting applied social sciences outcome which has been awarded the Nobel Prize this year. We will be unraveling in the edition. So stay tuned. And we hope that our Nobel nurturing teachers take these spirits of these lifelong pursuits of these literary figures, these peace activists, to their classrooms to pep them up and instill that sensitivity. As Dr. Surbi very, very rightly said, the core purpose of education is perhaps to kindle that seed of empathy, because once empathy is out there, I think all kind of empowerment comes naturally to you. In our rage and outrage, we try to curb others, and that's where the violence starts. So empathy is something can live and let live. With this,